My name is Zachary Bailey, and in this presentation, I will be discussing the Red Sea shipping disruptions and their impact on global business. This topic is important because the Red Sea is a major global route connecting Asia, Europe, and other regions through the Suez Canal. When that route becomes unsafe and unreliable, the effects spread far and beyond one region. They impact shipping companies, manufacturers, retailers, energy markets, and national economies. In this presentation, I will explain the event, discuss its business impact, connect it to foreign policy, and examine a real-world company case study, and then give my recommendations for how firms can respond strategically. So, we have now moved on to the presentation portion of my video, and my presentation is titled The Red Sea Shipping Disruptions, How Geopolitical Conflict Reshaped Global Trade and Business Strategy. So, this event matters because the Red Sea is one of the most important maritime trade corridors in the world. It allows ships to move between the Indian Ocean and the Mediterranean through the Suez Canal, which makes trade between Europe and Asia faster and more efficient. When that route is disrupted, global supply chains become less predictable and more expensive. Businesses that depended on timely deliveries, stable freight prices, and efficient logistics are hit especially hard. This situation also shows an important international business lesson. Geopolitical conflict is not separate from business strategy. Political instability can directly affect transportation costs and operations for multinational firms. And I just want to point out on the map on the right, the blue route is the route through the Red Sea, as you could tell, and the red route is the route that they have to go around because they can't go through the Red Sea. So, as we all know, the event I chose is the disruption of shipping in the Red Sea, but the disruption is happening because there are attacks happening on vessels, on commercial vessels. Because of these security threats, many shipping companies decided the Red Sea and nearby areas were too risky for normal operations. As a result, they reduced or suspended the use of the Suez Canal route and instead rerouted ships around the Cape of Good Hope at the southern tip of Africa. That's what I pointed out in the last slide. This changed one of the world's most important shipping patterns. What began as a regional conflict quickly became an international business issue because so many companies depend on maritime trade passing through this area. The business impact of this disruption was immediate. When ships avoid the Suez route and go around southern Africa instead, voyages become much longer. That means more fuel is needed, workers spend more time at sea, and shipping companies face higher operating costs. Insurance costs and war risk surcharges also increase when vessels move through unstable regions. These added costs do not exist with shipping firms alone. They ripple through the global supply chains and affect manufacturers, retailers, and consumers. Delays can hurt businesses that rely on just-in-time inventory systems, and higher transportation expenses can eventually push up prices for goods. So on the right is just a graph. Ports under pressure, waiting times climb as ships reroute. So the waiting times have climbed since the reroute has happened. So it's taking longer for our goods to get to the destination. This event has a strong foreign policy dimension because it was driven by geopolitical conflict and security threats rather than normal market forces. Governments responded with military and security efforts, but those actions did not completely remove the risk for businesses. That meant private companies still had to make their own decisions about whether to continue using the Red Sea route. This is important because it shows how foreign policy and business strategy overlap. Governments may try to stabilize trades, but firms still carry the financial and operational consequences once instability remains. International managers, this means political development must be monitored as closely as market trends. There are also clear ethical and business risks in this event. One major issue is worker safety. Shipping companies have a responsibility to protect their crew members and not expose them to unnecessary danger, just to keep costs low and deliveries fast. There is also the question of how these disruptions affect customers and smaller companies. Higher shipping and insurance costs are often passed down through the supply chain, which can make goods more expensive and put extra pressure on businesses with fewer financial resources. So this issue is not only about logistics, it is also about responsible decision making through the crisis conditions. And on the right is just showing a graph on how the food prices have been affected. So, for my case study, I chose Maersk, which is one of the world's largest container shipping companies. Maersk is a useful example because it is directly involved in global trade and had to make visible operational changes during this Red Sea crisis. The company rerouted some vessels around the Cape of Good Hope instead of using the Suez route when conditions in the Red Sea became too risky. This shows how a multinational company responds when geopolitical instability threatens normal business operations. Maersk's response was not just about ships moving differently, it was about protecting operations and maintaining service as much as possible, and balancing safety with efficiency. The Maersk case highlights an important lesson for international businesses. Many firms have built supply chains for maximum efficiency using fast routes and tight scheduling, but the Red Sea disruptions show what happens when a highly optimized system loses flexibility. A company that depends too heavily on one route becomes vulnerable when that route is disrupted. Maersk's decisions show that resilience matters just as much as efficiency. Businesses need contingency plans, alternate routes, and the ability to adapt quickly when political or security conditions change. This is a major takeaway for managers operating in a global environment. Based on this event, I have three main recommendations. First, multinational firms should diversify logistic options instead of depending too heavily on one trade corridor. Second, they should strengthen supply chain resilience by using multiple sourcing regions, keeping backup suppliers, and holding extra inventory for critical products when needed. And third, firms should treat geopolitical risk as a core strategic issue and build it into planning, forecasting, and decision making. Looking ahead, I think uncertainty will continue. Even if conditions improve temporarily, this event has already shown that critical trade routes can be disrupted for long periods. Businesses should plan to continue volatility rather than assume everything will quickly return to normal. So, to conclude, the Red Sea shipping disruptions are a strong example of how a regional conflict can quickly become a global business problem. Insecurity in one strategic maritime corridor increases cost, delays shipments, and create a risk for companies and national economies. The Marsh case shows how firms respond by rerouting operations and prioritizing continuity and safety. The biggest takeaway from this presentation is that in the modern global economy, resilience matters just as much as efficiency. Companies that prepare for geopolitical risk will be in much stronger position than those that assume global trade routes will always remain stable and open. So yeah, that is the end of my presentation here in my video, and I thank you for attending. If you have, just wanted to talk about this Red Sea disruption today and how it affects everything. And these are my references. And yeah, I thank you very much and have a wonderful day or evening or night. So goodbye.